All right. Welcome to another edition of the Edlow Podcast. Subscribe. I keep saying this is not a wrestling podcast. It's a human interest podcast, yet I keep having wrestlers come on. And so, that's because they're just so interesting. And here I have, you may have remembered him as Damian Standow, but he is Aron Stevens. Mr. Stevens, thank you for joining the Edlow Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited about this one.
Yeah. So your career has been so interesting. First of all, it's very rare that you have somebody who is very popular. You were popular in the WWE. You're popular on the indie scene, and you've kind of taken a step back and you've kind of started to do acting. And you've been classically trained. You're doing things. What made you want to make the leap?
Frankly, I get bored real quick.
I feel you.
Wrestling, it was, and it still is, it's amazing. But the fact is, like, I was, in a position in WWE where I felt I had just maxed out. I wasn't in charge of the booking. I couldn't, make them put me in, the heavyweight title picture or give me the heavyweight title. I was getting this amazing response from the fans. But then, when business-wise, it just really wasn't lining up with WWE. It was time to go. And what makes me, I think, different than a lot of people in the industry is I was never one to go do indies and milk them for all the money you can, because regardless of what anyone will tell you, that is the mentality of a lot of people. Not everyone, but the majority of them. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. But with me, I was like, I wanted to do more with my life. So, I shaved and kind of just completely just shed the skin of who I was as a wrestler, and just kind of hit Hollywood, boots on the ground, and just to see what would happen there. And, found some what I would call mild success there. But then, again, it was an interesting journey where it led me back now to working with NWA and what I'm doing now, both on and off camera. So it's been good. And, the acting stuff is just, as it comes my way, I'll take it. But I just don't really have the personality type that a lot of people kind of take on to play the game of Hollywood. I'm very much like, say what you mean what you say.
Yeah.
I don't like a lot of BS. And to a degree, there's that in any business. But in Hollywood, a lot of people, they would rather have you compromise your morals, regardless of, if you're talented or not talented, whatever. And it wasn't my cup of tea, shall we say. And then now, again, I'm not speaking about everybody in Hollywood that's a successful actor, right? I'm talking about my personal experience during the time I was there. Right. I'm sure there's some wonderful people in Hollywood. And then there are, because I've met them. There's some horrible people in Hollywood, like there are in any other profession.
Right. You should try to be a lawyer. That's what I do.
Well, there's some wonderful lawyers. You know what? I am going to say this. I am blessed because I have a lot of friends who are lawyers, and I know a lot more amazing lawyers than bad ones.
Yeah.
And I'll say amazing because some of the lawyers I know are just wonderful human beings.
Yeah. It's hard. It's interesting. I've been I did indie wrestling on a low level. I did indie wrestling. You can't see I'm 6'7", and at my good weight I was 275. We won't talk. You
must crush in the courtroom. Wow.
It's a benefit, right? It is intimidating if you need it to be. But the thing that I find is so interesting, it is really hard, and you probably believe this too in the wrestling industry, because I've been around some of those guys. You mentioned compromising your morals. When you're in kind of waters that you have a certain moral standard that it appears that the most don't. Like, for example, I'm LDS, right? So I don't drink. Attorneys drink like a fish, a lot of them. You know what I mean? That there's all the parties have alcohol and all these things. Sometimes it's hard to, it can be hard to kind of keep those morals. What have you found have helped you to keep your moral standards while you're going through businesses like wrestling and Hollywood? These ones that traditionally you can see there are some people that maybe are unsavory.
It's just really, it goes down to my family, how I was raised.
Oh, okay.
My upbringing, especially. I have very good parents. I had very good grandparents. God rest
Mhm.
all their souls. My grandfather, especially, was very. I don't want to say prophetic,
Mm.
but I remember this one incident. We were driving down Main Street in town. I was about, I would say, 6 or 7 years old, and
Mhm.
he goes, one day people may ask for your autograph, and everyone will know who you are, but you never forget where you came from. And that to me, and I get goosebumps thinking about that now. That to me has sat with me through my whole life because I have to be able to look at myself in the mirror and good, bad, or indifferent. Uh, it is what it is, and I am
Mhm.
who I am.
Yeah.
So that
I also noticed that you had I believe you have a Catholic background, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah. Did that inform kind of your moral base, or did you kind of develop it more? I don't know if you're still practicing or.
No, I mean yeah, I am practicing still, but I mean I have looked into every other phase. I have been in sweat lodges with Native Americans. I
Hmm.
have really kind of I don't want to say study, but I've um been able to have discussions with and done ceremonies with shamans in Peru. Um,
Wow.
I and again people they have a tendency to, if I say this, it has a bunch of different implications because like the teaching on it is insane when it comes to no one knows really, and
Yeah.
some people think they do, but I'm also a Freemason.
Oh, yeah.
And I asked a priest if it was okay to join, by the way, when I was joining, and he said yeah. I mean it was okay. And like look, nothing in the Masonic Lodge has contradicted my Catholic faith. Now look, I am not a biblical scholar. I'm certainly not a any kind of Catholic authority, but I try to just approach this from a place of, to me, and holiness. I don't want to get that deep, here if you don't want to, but like I try to kind of like you picture religion,
Mhm.
and yes, there's the doctrine, but why is there doctrine? To try to make us better human beings.
Correct.
So I truly believe in, again, what Christ taught of like, you don't judge. You have to try to understand. You have to see God, the divine, call it what you will, in everyone and recognize whether we like it or not that they were created just like us
Yeah.
and they are entitled to that same respect.
Yeah. It's interesting. Freemasonry. So the LDS Temple and Freemasonry, they have a lot of similarities, right? And
I've heard that. I
so
actually did a movie with a bunch of people from the LDS community, and they were talking about that. Yes.
yeah, and so it's quite fascinating. But the thing
Mhm.
that you brought up that I think is really interesting, according to LDS doctrine, we're all literal descendants of God, and if that's true, we're all related somehow. And when you think about that as somebody, it kind of changes the way you relate to other people. You try to treat them a little bit better, and that's the point. What I love about religion in general is it's all about trying to make us better people. Sure, some people pervert that and make it into something worse, but if you're really truly following it, it is all about being a better human and being better for God and your fellow man. And so, how does that work? So does that kind of help the way? Do you feel like that's kind of helped you get by in these businesses that are really? I mean, the wrestling business while you were in it was very, very cutthroat.
Yes, it's helped me to a degree in that I'll, it's fine. Okay, so I kept my soul to a degree, right? I didn't do
Yeah.
anything to compromise my morals, and
Mhm.
had I done that, my career probably would have looked very differently. I'd
Mhm.
probably have a few more zeros in my bank account now.
Mhm.
But I don't. It doesn't bother me. Like I've been
Mhm.
very blessed to be, financially secure. Um, and there's part of me that like, yeah, I wish I would have reached a certain height in WWE. But at the end of the day, I always got a top level response, regardless whether I was in the main event or not. And I've been
Mhm.
everywhere on the card. I've main event in Madison Square Garden, and I've gone out there dressed like Abraham Lincoln.
I remember
But
that.
the the whole thing is, it's like performing, I'm going to give everything I have to the audience, because number one, if they pay, they deserve that. But also, if I don't give everything I have to whatever I'm doing, even if I don't like it, that is going to reflect on me as a performer, and my stock will go down. And I tell a lot of younger talent that in NWA that I'm able to work with, like, regardless of what you're doing, when that red light is on, you have to go all out, and you have to put everything you have to make that the best performance of your life. And that's how you have to approach it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting. When you were with the WWE as Damian Sandow, you stuck out to me. I like to observe and just analyze. I mean, I'm a lawyer and I did wrestling, so I love watching the WWE and watching people do what I tried to do at the highest level. One of the things that you did, and I even got other guys like Santino Marella, I've had him on the podcast, and other guys.
One of my best friends. I'm currently I'm in Massachusetts with family right now, but I was up there for 2 months, and I'm going back there for 2 months. I'm helping him out with battle arts, but him and I are very tight.
Tell him I said hi. I one of my favorite podcasts. He's such a good dude. And if you know, he knows Johnny Jeter. I trained with Johnny Jeter. He lives like 15 minutes from me.
I know. I trained with Jeter. Yes, I love Jeter.
Dude,
Jeter and I were in OVW together. Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to. I'll shoot him a text after this and let him know we talked.
Yeah.
He is such a good dude. So he literally lives like 15 minutes from me, and he's become one of my best friends. Like, just love him to death. Him and his wife. They have a baby. They just adopted a second, and they're just doing really great. He's a good dude, and he I finished training with him, and he was so knowledgeable. Just love him to death. But one of the things But what I wanted to say about you and Santino and these different guys is that it didn't seem to matter what they threw at you. You somehow made it work.
That goes back to our training. And it's funny you mentioned Jeter. And I say this all the time. If you look at NWA, and you look who's standing out now, Mike Mondo, and this is not a knock on anyone, but the time we were at OVW, and if you look at, again, from like the Lesnars to Shelton Benjamin to Orton to Cena, Batista, the list goes on and on. And then, our class was after that, of course. But if you look at anyone that trained at OVW at that time, bottom line, we're just different.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in terms of our standard of what is good in the ring. And we were trained to be prepared for anything.
Yeah.
At any time.
It's funny. One thing that I loved about training with Johnny, because I think you've probably seen this too. And if you talk to JR, he JR Kratos, he'd tell you the same thing. Here in our area in Northern California, there's another wrestling school popping up every 5 minutes from people who, a lot of them probably shouldn't be training anybody. And looking at Johnny, the thing I loved about training with Johnny, when he came in, I was like, I have to come train with him, because I didn't want to ever do training with a guy who trained at the Heart Dungeon, right? I wanted to be like with a guy who'd been there. And one of the things I loved about him was less is more. Like, you don't, everybody wants to do 1,000 flips. And he's like, you could do the same, get the same reaction from a body slam. And that's the way I've done it. And so,
yeah. And again, it's not a knock on the style today, right? Because like styles evolve in this, and in any business, right? There's a constant evolution, but the wheel is still round. And when people say less is more, again, what do they mean by that? It is allowing the audience time to appreciate what you're doing, so they can then invest in you. We can scroll through Instagram right now, and there's a million guys doing a million moves that are all phenomenal. Well, some of them are not; they're absolutely horrible. But there's a lot of people out there, men and women, that do amazing stuff in the ring. Well, why isn't anyone more over? You know what I mean? And being over, which is, for our uninitiated audience, that is being popular with the crowd, right? Either extremely, we say a baby face or a good guy, or a heel or a bad guy, and you get that reaction. And what happens is, like, okay, moves are one thing, but then the hard stuff, the real hard stuff, is learning the art of this, to where we can say, okay, here are the 8 basic colors and a blank canvas. You can mix the paint, do whatever you want. Okay, well, if you just you mix up a bunch of awesome colors, but you don't know how to paint it, people will admire the colors and say, oh, that's cool. But if the painting is bad, they won't admire the artist.
Yeah.
Like, how does it all come together? I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but that's the
I think
best
it
one I can
is.
come up with now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think that the way I've heard, like, the Undertaker talk about it is he says, the moves are fine, but the moves are there to help you tell the story. And that's what Johnny would teach is he would just
100%.
say, it's all about the story you're trying to teach or trying to show.
Yeah.
And that's how
Moments
people
over
get
moves.
over it.
Yeah.
Right.
Moments
Yeah.
over moves.
That's a great way to say it. I'm probably going to steal that.
Yeah.
So now, as far as moments, I want to shift on a moment in WWE. You were the first guy who got the Money in the Bank briefcase and then didn't cash in and become champion.
Mm-hmm.
Did they tell you from the beginning that's the way it was going to be? And if not, when you found out, give me an idea of the emotion behind that.
Well, okay. Found out I wasn't the happiest person who I found out the day of. Okay. Was what it was. But the reality is I could have gone and sulked and had the boo-boo face, as we call it.
Mm-hmm.
But I had 3 segments to knock out. And we're going up against the World Series and Monday Night Football. So I have to, put my big boy tights on and go out there and deliver. And that was truly the main focus, because when you do that, all right, whatever happens afterwards is going to happen afterwards. But until then, no. I mean, I have to go produce at the highest level to the best of my ability. And that is how I handle that day.
Yeah. So after that, was there some, there had to have been a little bit of a low. How did you adjust afterwards and not become bitter?
You just keep going. You just keep going. And then creatively, whatever they did with me, it was like, whatever, fine. But then, again, the Miz thing happened, and the only reason Mizdow was a success, they gave it consistent TV time. If you give me consistent TV time with a consistent storyline, I will get that response every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. And you did. I mean, that's the thing. I've seen you work in house shows and I've seen you work on TV, and you always got the response. You always got that, one pop that you need that people go home and go, yeah, they remember it. You were memorable.
Bingo. Thank you. And then that's the point, right? Where you create those moments and you make people feel something that's just, it transcends moves. It touches on, the human condition.
Yeah.
And when you can do that, then, you'll always have a job, so to speak.
Yeah.
If you want one.
Yeah. Now so shifting from the WWE, you get released, you go on the indie circuit, you end up now with NWA. Obviously there are some differences in the audience that you're seeing. It's not as large, but creatively, tell me about the differences and why you like the NWA now.
So I was in Hawaii filming an episode of Magnum PI. I was out of the business, all done. Billy calls me. Hey, I bought the NWA. Yeah, congratulations. You need to come back to work. No, I don't. You already got a plane ticket. Just come in. And I went there, and it was like the old school, Georgia Championship Wrestling setup. And it was like, okay, like, you got my interest. And then since then, Billy has given me more creative freedom than I've ever had in my career. And one of the things I have learned is with that creative freedom, I have a responsibility to him to not only give my best, but if he asked me to do something, even if I wasn't particularly thrilled with it, at the end of the day, I'm always going to do it. And he knows that. And then there is such a respect between us. And we definitely, it is a friendship. But it's just, again, it's a place that I am very loyal to for a number of reasons. And then now doing what I'm doing backstage, and being able to help some of the talent that I'm helping, and the freedom that I have to do it. That's another thing about Billy. It's his company, and it's one thing to say, hey, you have a promo, go do whatever you want with it, right? I mean,
Right.
I think I did that in WWE, so I'm not trying to whatever, but I've kind of earned that right everywhere. I think, like, okay, like I'll be able to do that, and it'll be what it'll be. But to trust other people with me, and then the talent that trusts me to do it. And I always say one thing. I go, look, do not look at this like, oh, the artist formerly known as Damian Sandow was telling me this, so I need to do it. No, I want you to go try it. And if something I tell you to do does not work, I will own it. But if you do what I say, how I say it, it will 100% work, because I can see that. Like, because everything I tell the talent to do is 100% battle tested and proven. And you see the work. There's a bunch of people that I'm truly privileged to be able to help in their careers. There was 3 people I was able to kind of get my hooks into, if you will, early, before they got tainted by what people think wrestling is nowadays. And I'm talking about Carson Drake and the Slime Balls. And they, I call them my kids, because, with them, I gave them the speech where, like, okay, if you want Jedi training, like you really want to learn this, like, this is how it is. And I am far more blunt with them than I am with a lot of people, because that's just the relationship I have with them. Meaning, like, look, there is a line in wrestling. There is making money, and then there's, I won't swear, but there's effing off. If that makes sense.
It does.
And you want to make money, this is how you do it. Sorry, because going back to your, assessment of the, a lot of wrestling schools that people don't know what they're doing. Going back to that, it's, if someone hasn't made $1 million, they can't teach you how to make it.
Yeah, that's right. Everything that you said totally makes sense to me. One thing I wanted to ask you about, though, so a lot of the, I guess what you call the internet wrestling community, whatever you want to call them, they give Tony Khan a lot of heat because of kind of almost being like, a lot of people call him a mark running the thing, and I don't know how much opportunity you've had to work over there or have conversations with him, but can you, how is it working for Billy Corgan in wrestling?
Billy is an artist, and Billy knows art when he sees it. Look, Tony Khan, and I'm not going to knock anyone, because at the end of the day, look, Tony has the resources he does, and AEW is what it is. Could it be doing better? Yes, but the same could be said for every wrestling promotion.
Sure.
If I had Tony Khan's checkbook, I would run that company very, very differently. But again, I don't, and I'm not going to knock him, because he employs a lot of people. And from what I have heard from him, I've never met him, he is a good man and a kind man. And I look at this from the perspective of how he has taken care of Brody Lee's family.
Yeah.
And that, first and foremost, again, as a human being, that speaks to him. But again, as a professional wrestling person, and as someone who's in the wrestling industry, I would do a lot of things differently, but that's just me. Billy truly is passionate about this. And the thing about Billy is he is always willing to learn and adapt and adjust. And, it's very interesting to watch his evolution as a boss to what he's kind of becoming in terms of the NWA president, and how he's deciding to steer the ship. It's been a real pleasure to be able to kind of go along that journey with him. And, Billy, he is again, and I'm speaking for the wrestling boss and the man, based on my experiences. He is a kind man. He is a good man. He is a loyal man. And above all, he has integrity. And that, to me, goes so much further than a lot of people I've worked for in the past. And again, could he afford to pay me what WWE could? No, but my schedule is way lighter, and I am compensated very well. And I'm grateful to that. And to me, like I go back to Carson the Slime Balls, right?
Mhm.
When I told him one time, you want to make $1 in this business, you got to generate 10 at least.
Yeah. Right.
That should be the goal anyway. And that is the mentality I do, because I do not take our friendship for granted when it comes to
Mhm.
that. Like, if anything, I want to produce more for him, because I'm very emotionally attached to the NWA. And that's interesting, because I was at a place where when I left wrestling, I became emotionally detached from everything. That's why, the Hollywood stuff, like I was bored, but then, you'll always be a wrestler in your mind, no matter what. I've been doing it since I
Sure.
was 16. So I was actively trying to work to kind of divest myself of that thought pattern that wrestlers have, and just the way, but
Sure.
you never fully lose it. And NWA it's allowed me to reconcile a lot. And again, to be able to help some of the people, the Kazanas are doing great. There's just so many people that, you can see the improvement in their careers, right? And if you look at the Slime Balls, to look at them, you would say, no way.
Mhm.
Initially. Now they
Mhm.
sell more merchandise than anybody in our company, and they just got full-time contracts. They're both in their early 20s. And it's because of the way the live audience reacts to them. I don't try to teach people things, because I think a lot of wrestling instructors do that. Like, their careers, they weren't what they thought they'd be, so they try to, like, almost feed their own ego by, I'm a wrestling school, I'm going to teach all these little kids, and it's this weird kind of psychological thing where I tell the kids, I'm like, no, do it this way or not. But if you do it this way, you're going to have success. And and God bless all three of them. I mean, they listen, and it's just great seeing their success. And I don't want to. I don't want all the credit for it or anything like that, because ultimately they're the ones that have to go out and do it. But the funny thing is talent comes to me. Oh, I want help with this, this, and this. Well, I tell them, here's what you need to do, and they just won't do it. And
No.
like, one guy, won't mention his name, trying to get him to do a little strike, give him a little sizzle on the steak. And I told him, you need to do this. You need to walk and do this with your headphones. You need to pace the floors of your house and do this. You need to make this. I just can't. I'm not feeling. I'm not feeling. Okay, fine. And I wish him the best. I like him. I consider him a friend. But the reality is, until he makes the adjustments, his career will be very, very limited, and he will not have
Mhm.
the career that he wants. So, and
Mhm.
again, this is just. I'm very blunt. Um, but I feel that honesty is sometimes needed.
Yeah, I do a lot of mentoring with in different areas of life, and I have 4 kids, right? And so,
Mhm.
dealing with them, and yeah, it's hard to let go of the result, right? It's hard to just sit there. You sit there and you give them the opportunities, and you see them do it or not, and sometimes it can be real hard to when you go, I can see where you're missing it. You know what I mean? And so,
Right.
but it's great to sound that it's great. It's great to hear that you have kind of. I can tell you're a good mentor for these
Oh, thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. So with the time we have left, I usually ask 3 questions that I ask everybody, rather existential. If you can give me the opportunity to do that to finish this up.
And we'll
First
totally, if
thing,
we have to go in OT, that's absolutely fine, by the way, because we had some.
okay,
So yeah, we're absolutely fine with that.
okay, good. So here's the first question: what would you think we consider your biggest success in life?
Maintaining my moral framework.
Yeah. Was there something, if you don't have to share it if you don't want to, was there something that you were asked to do that you were like, I just morally can't do that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Do you want to elaborate or no?
Uh, no, but it's the reason I believe that the Money in the Bank thing happened the way it did.
Hmm.
Who knows for sure? But my career
Interesting.
was going one way, and then even if the Money in the Bank thing happened the way, but like it was going that way, and again, certainly my responses from the crowd were not indicative of you know if you're going by merit. Um, I don't think it was indicative of how I was treated after that, but that's fine because I just wrestled the Invisible Man and made a very decent wage doing that. So
Yeah, you know what I find is what I loved about that too was again what we were saying is that they probably gave you some of these silly things as a punishment, and yet you
mhm.
got them over.
Yeah.
That's just so, I love that, you know?
Thank you.
So the next question is, was there, what would you consider your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
My biggest failure was after I left WWE, I had equated my self-worth with that. And I let that get to me. And again, I call it a failure because it took a while for me to kind of get myself out of the that dark place. But at the end of the day, even that was a success because I overcame it by the grace of God and by some of the people in my life.
Oh, awesome. And so you equate that to everyone around you kind of giving you the external validation, or did you kind of find that within yourself at some point?
No, I you know, when we seek external validation, right? It will never be enough. It's like, you know, the cup with the hole in it. So it has to come from within us, but there are the people in our lives that will get us to see that by whatever means. And again, I really consider myself blessed to have been surrounded with some wonderful, wonderful people.
Yeah, that's awesome, and so essential to just process of life. Final question: one day, hopefully, way down the road, you're going to pass away, and there's going to be a funeral. Someone's going to give you a eulogy. What do you hope is the one thing that someone says about you in your eulogy?
He was fun.
Yeah,
I enjoyed being around him.
Yeah.
He made a difference. You know what I mean? I'll say made a difference in a positive way, right? At the end of the day, like, we all want to leave the world better than we found it. At least some of us do. And that's all. Yeah. You know, that's all.
Well, you know, following up on that, do you feel like your career in wrestling is more meaningful now that you're helping other people in the NWA than it was in the WWE when it was kind of just all about you?
On one level, yes, because, and again, I say this especially with the three I'm doing. This isn't to discredit anyone else I'm working with or take away from them, but the you know, Carson and the Slime Balls, they changed me as a person, because I had to start approaching things differently. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Pat Kenny, who has been a mentor to me in this phase of my career, and he has been a godsend to me. But no, it's the fact that I'm able to affect people's lives outside of the industry to where, you know, whatever influence I'm having, it transcends wrestling on that one.
Definitely. Well, I can just tell you, just by the mutual people we know, when it comes to Santino Marella and it comes to Jeter and Kratos, that you're obviously good people if you associate with them. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast. I didn't even get a chance to talk to you. I saw on your on some of your stuff that you're actually interested in stage acting, and I would be remiss if I didn't have you back at some point. So because my daughter's a big theater buff, and so we'll have to talk about musicals or something. So we'll have to have you back another time. For those who want to follow you, where can they find you?
On Instagram, it is the Aron Files. That's ARON Files. And X, or formerly known as Twitter, it is ARONS Thoughts.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, to those who are listening, we still got a bunch of other stuff coming up. Thanks for listening, Mr. Stevens. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you.